Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Diolch yn fawr. Welcome to the Labour Party 2016 Leadership Debates at the All Nations Centre here in Cardiff. Croeso I Gaerdydd ac ei ddadleuon arweinyddol y Blaid Lafur 2016. Over the coming weeks, Labour members and supporters will choose their leader for the party, and I'm pleased to say that the two candidates in this leadership race will go head-to-head for the first time here in Wales and in Cardiff this evening. Dyma'r cam cyntaf heno, felly y tro cyntaf fydd y ddau ymgeisydd yn mynd benben mewn dadl fyw yn yr ymgyrch I ddewis arweinydd nesaf llafur. Croeso, welcome, Jeremy Corbyn and Owen Smith. Tonight's debate is a bit of a departure from the traditional hustings that people may be familiar with from last year. Firstly, we are being live streamed, which means Labour members across the country, whether they're part of our audience here or not, are able to watch and debate and hear what the candidates have to say. And this time, the candidates are going to be able to directly debate their positions, which I'm sure will lead to a lively and engaging discussion and help the audience here and at home to understand a bit more about the positions being staked out by each of the two candidates. Edrych ymlaen at y drafodaeth felly. My name is Catherine Jones, I'm a journalist with ITV Cymru Wales, but tonight I have the task of being the independent chair and moderator here this evening. But before we begin, I just want to quickly set out how this event will run. Backstage, just a short while ago, Jeremy Corbyn and Owen Smith drew lots to determine the order in which they would take questions. Over the past week and a half, members and supporters of the Labour Party have been sending in their questions online. There were indeed a significant number of questions, so we'll try and get through as many of them tonight as possible and try and get a broad range to reflect that selection. I'll be putting your questions to each candidate in turn and give them 40 seconds each to give their initial answers before opening it up for debate between the two candidates. To close the debate this evening, I'll invite each candidate in turn to give a final 2-minute pitch on why they are the best candidate for the job of leading the Labour Party. Felly, dyna'r drefn am heno. That's the order for this evening. But just before we kick off, a couple of pieces of housekeeping, naturally with these things. If we can ask the audience, please, to refrain from prolonged applause or making comments out of turn. It'll help us maximise on the questions and the debating time here this evening. Also, there's more information about the upcoming debates and a form to submit any questions for those debates online at labour.org.uk/debates. And now, without further ado, let's get on with the debate for the 2016 Labour leadership election. Jeremy Corbyn, Owen Smith, welcome, croeso, and I hope you're fired up and ready for the round of questions and debates we're going to have this evening. So, to open the debate tonight, the first question, or indeed request, comes from David Appleyard, a member from Sowerbury Bridge. And Owen Smith will ask you to open this, depending on the lots we pulled beforehand. David Appleyard, Sowerbury Bridge, asks, can you convince me that you are the person that Theresa May would least like to face at the next general election? You have 40 seconds.
Well, yes, I think I can. I think I'm the person who's got the ideas in this debate. I think I'm the person who's got the energy in this debate. And I think I see very clearly that we've not been what we need to be in recent months, which is a powerful, credible opposition to the Tory party. They're riding roughshod over us. We've left Europe. We've got an NHS that is practically bankrupt. They're destroying Labour's legacy, ruining our sure start, overcrowding our schools. And we've got to carry the fight to the Tories much more vigorously than we've done in recent months. And I've demonstrated in the way in which I fought the tax credits issue and turned it, in the way in which I fought the cuts to disabled people. I know how to fight these Tories, and I know how to win.
Thank you very much. Jeremy Corbyn, can you convince David Appleyard that you're the person that Theresa May would least like to face at the next general election?
Thanks, David. Thanks for your question. Theresa May is a Tory Prime Minister. Theresa May is likely to be presiding over a bargain basement economy that's going to attack all of our rights, our living standards and all of our public services. She doesn't understand the strength of ordinary people's feelings all over the country, which is why I've tried to change Prime Minister's question time around from a public school theatre into asking the questions that are put to me by ordinary people all over this country. I think it's important to do that. I think we can put it to her that what she's doing is wrong, and in the past 10 months we've defeated the government 22 times in Parliament. When we work together, we win. When we work together, we do defeat the Tories.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up to debate. Owen Smith, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I think the problem with that, Jeremy, is we're not defeating the Tories. We've had a few victories. We've done relatively well on a few occasions, but we're behind. We're behind. You just pick up the papers today. We're 14 percentage points behind the Tories under Theresa May. 2 million Labour voters think they would prefer Theresa May to Jeremy Corbyn as the Prime Minister of this country. Now, that has got to be a wake-up call for us all. You can't be satisfied with that. I'm not satisfied with that. You know, I'm pleased that we won on PIP. I'm pleased that we won on tax credits, but I don't think that's sufficient. I want us to be looked at by the country as a credible, respected opposition and a Labour government in waiting. I know you're radical. I'm radical, but I want us to be radical in government, not radical in protesting against the Tories. Owen.
In the 10 months since the last leadership election, we have defeated the Tories many times, and you and I worked together to ensure that that happened, and I was very happy to do that. We won all 4 by-elections, 3 with a big swing to Labour. We won 4 mayoral contests. We picked up a lot of support over the general election of 2015. And so I think as an opposition, we've done very well. We were ahead in May. Then came the wave of resignations, then came the threat to unity in the party, and that is what has put us behind in the polls. So, Owen, I honestly believe that come the end of this contest, you and I are going to be able to work together in Parliament in order to put forward a decent anti-austerity strategy, even stronger than we've been able to mount so far, because the party, I hope, will unite around an economic strategy which is about investment to protect and create jobs, which is about showing just exactly what the Tories are about. And that way, we can use this massive membership we've got to defeat the Tories and win a general election.
We agree that we need a united Labour Party. We absolutely need that, because disunited parties lose elections. But we have never looked more disunited than we've looked under your leadership. We've never looked more disunited. A part of the reason we are so disunited is we are losing. We lost in the local government elections. 18 seats. The Tories at the same point in the cycle won 300 seats. Ed Miliband at this point in the cycle was 9 percentage points ahead. We're 14 points behind. UKIP here in Wales won 7 seats. It's a disgrace. We've got UKIP in our National Assembly here in Wales on your watch, on our watch. We're 3rd in Scotland behind the Tories. This is not success, Jeremy. And on current trajectory, we will be down at 22% at the next election in 2020 under your leadership. Now, you cannot want that, because you want a Labour government. You want to put into practice our principles. You don't just want to protest about it, I hope. You want to actually deliver something for this country. And for me, that means winning. It doesn't mean trading our principles. It means winning to put them into practice. That's what we've got to do with a Labour government in waiting, not a protest movement.
Right, I want to invite Jeremy Corbyn to respond to that, please. We've got 5.
You and I were at the same shadow cabinet table when we agreed on the strategy we were going to do in the House. We agreed on where we were going to take it to the Tories, and we had a significant number of victories. And we did defeat the Tories in the May elections. I wished it had been by more, but we were ahead of them at the end of it. And the party is growing massively in membership. That must show something. What I don't understand is how you can complain about disunity in the party when you and others are the ones who resigned from the shadow cabinet at the very point when we could have taken it to them.
Jeremy, I'm not having that because you know, Jeremy, that I wasn't part of any coup in the Labour Party. No. I didn't resign from the shadow cabinet on that Sunday. I went
Can you
to
please,
see
we want to hear
Jeremy.
from the candidates,
I
and in
went
fairness
to
to
see you,
both.
Jeremy, and you know that I came to see you to say, not can I resign, but to say, how do we get out of this problem? You knew that we had a no-confidence vote in you coming that evening. You knew that many of my colleagues, who didn't ring me and ask me to resign, had resigned on that Sunday. Now, I went to Jeremy and I said very clearly, Jeremy, how are we going to get out of this? I've served in your shadow cabinet with loyalty. I've helped you win those victories on PIP and tax credits. But you've got to do something to save the Labour Party, because at the moment, we face the prospect of an historic split in the Labour Party. And Jeremy, you couldn't answer that question. You didn't have an answer as to how we were going to forge better relations in the party. You simply said, let's have an election. You simply said, I've got a big mandate. Now, John McDonnell, he was very clearly happy to split this party. He said as much in that meeting. And I'm not standing by and see the Labour Party split while I've got the blood in my veins to fight for it. I'm just not doing it.
John McDonnell has been an
respond
MP
to that,
since
then, please?
1997. He won a seat off the Tories. He's now made it into a very strong Labour seat. And at that interesting discussion that you and I had about the future direction of the party, you concluded it by offering me unopposed election to a position that doesn't exist as president of the party, and invited me to step aside. I pointed out, yes, there were problems in the Parliamentary Labour Party, and I think you would also concede that I appointed a shadow cabinet that reached out a long way in the party, way beyond the politics that I'd adopted beforehand. And surely the best thing is for us to recognise what is happening in this country and work together to defeat the Tory party, not indulge in what we're doing now.
Okay, I'm going to bring it to a close there because, in fairness, Owen Smith, you did open, and I'm sure we'll revisit a lot of those topics with the next question, in fact. This comes from John Bath in London, and you'll have 40 seconds again to summarise your answer to this and then go on to debate. Jeremy Corbyn, you'll be answering first. Do you think that in order to be an effective leader of the Labour Party, the leader of the party needs to have the support of a majority of the Labour members of Parliament?
It would be a good thing if Labour MPs got behind their leader and worked with them rather than briefed against them all the time. I understand political differences and I understand dissent. I understand that because I practice political differences and dissent myself, as everybody is very well aware. But personal abuse is simply not acceptable. Endlessly personally briefing against people is not acceptable. An effective leader of the Labour Party must have the support of party members and affiliates, and I think members of Parliament should recognise that the structure of our party has changed. And I had, last year, a very strong democratic mandate to try and change things in this country, and I believe we have changed politics in this country.
Thank you very much. Owen Smith, the same again to you. Do you want me to repeat the question? Or you?
No, that's fine. Look, the leader of the Labour Party has an historic duty to hold together a coalition in the party. We've always been a coalition with different views from left and right. And it is the principal job of the leader to forge a powerful alliance in the party, in the country, and at Westminster. It's always been the case. It was the case in the 1940s. It was the case in the 1960s. It's the case still today. And Jeremy, I'm afraid, has not been able to hold us together in Westminster. We are a fractured, splintered party. And the only people who will benefit from that are the Tories. The only people who will benefit from that is the radical right in this country.
Okay,
and I say to Jeremy, it is dereliction of duty of all of us not to heal these rifts and not to unite and save this party.
Thank you very much. You can come back to debate that. Jeremy Corbyn, how do you propose to be an effective opposition if you don't have the majority support of the Parliamentary Labour Party?
I think the majority of Labour MPs actually want us to be an effective opposition. There are a very small number who are filling up the airwaves with various fearful announcements that they constantly make. I want us to put a party together that does take it to the Tories. I reach out to all members of the Parliamentary Party. If re-elected, I will be appointing a broad shadow cabinet, as I have before, and I'll be encouraging every Labour MP to work with the shadow team on taking part. But I tell you this, when Labour MPs decide collectively, or a small number of them decide collectively not to do something and refuse to turn up to a debate on the economy, for example, because it was opened by John McDonnell, that's silly, childish behaviour. Their duty is to be out there putting it to the Tories.
I agree with Jeremy that some of my colleagues have never been reconciled to Jeremy's leadership. I agree with him, and I think some people have behaved appallingly in the Parliamentary Labour Party. But Jeremy, 172 Labour MPs voted no confidence in your leadership. Now, they're not red Tories. These aren't people who want to see the Tories back in power. They're not Blairites. They're just Labour MPs. They're just Labour MPs, Jeremy. And this sort of abuse, this sort of assumption that just because they're not confident in you as our leader, they're anti-Labour, they're red Tories, it cannot be allowed to continue. We can't have this sort of ugly dialogue in the Labour Party. We are fighting like ferrets in a sack. And it is the Tories who will benefit if we aren't united. So, Jeremy, you've got to do more to pull us back together. And I'm afraid I don't think you can.
I'm the last one to do an ugly dialogue with anybody, quite honestly. And I read some memoirs of Harold Wilson at the time I was elected to this position. And he used to, every Wednesday afternoon, open his office and any Labour MP could go and talk to him. I've done the same. I've had very long conversations with a large number of colleagues. I've learned quite a lot from those conversations. I hope they've learned things as well. We've got to understand each other better. That surely is the right way of doing things. But we've got to recognise the Parliamentary Party is very important, a very important part of the Labour Party and the Labour movement, but it's not the entirety of it. We have to represent what our members want, what our affiliates want, and above all, the communities that our members and affiliates represent want as well. Therefore, I was very pleased when we managed to turn it around from abstaining on the welfare reform bill a year ago to absolutely opposing it and eventually working together, defeating them on tax credits.
And who led that campaign, Jeremy? Who led that campaign in your shadow cabinet? I did. I was the Shadow Secretary of State for DWP who led the campaign on tax credits and on food. I was the one who took the fight to Ian Duncan-Smith. I was the one who mentioned when he fell.
You were the Shadow Secretary of State.
And I was desperate to fight for a Labour victory. But at the moment, Jeremy, I say again, we're 14 points behind the Tories. We don't look like ousting them from power. And that is because we are not convincing the country that they've got to put back their trust in us so they can look at us under your leadership and see a credible and radical government in waiting. And the reason for that is we've not put in place a programme. We've had lots of great slogans like anti-austerity. But what are we for, Jeremy? I'm for pro-prosperity. I'm for a massive Keynesian investment programme in this country, a British New Deal. I'm for actually winning in order to put on the table proper workers' rights. Increase wages. We've got to get into power to do that. We're shaking our fist through the railings.
Can I invite Corbyn to respond to our points there?
We're all there for winning. We're all there for
Well, I wonder
investment.
sometimes.
We're all there.
I wonder
Owen,
sometimes.
you've made a lot of statements over the last few days, and I'm really pleased you have. All of them were actually already been made by the Shadow Cabinet during the past year. Many have been made by John McDonnell. And if we can come together on an economic strategy which is about investment, which is about public investment, which is about a national investment bank, then that's good, because that is really what this country needs. The Tories will take us down to a bargain basement island off the continent of Europe with low wages, high profits, grotesque levels of inequality, and a growing service economy at the expense of our manufacturing economy. You and I don't want that. We want something very different, which does require us to work together to get that investment, to get a government that is prepared to intervene in the economy and provide everyone with the decent standards of living that they not just want, need and deserve, and that we don't go into a cycle of intergenerational poverty, which is what has happened with 30 years of neoliberal economics all across Europe and the USA.
Final remarks.
Jeremy, you and I...
Thank you.
You and I, Jeremy, agree on much of the analysis of what's gone wrong in our economy. We share that view that we've got a long-term structural crisis. Well, you say we put in place these policies. It's just not true, Jeremy. I sat in the shadow cabinet with you. I didn't once hear you talk about a £200 billion and certainly not a £500 billion investment fund that John McNaughton has now announced since I announced it. I don't think I've ever heard you say, well, it's true, I sat alongside him. I've said, let's invest 4% per year in the NHS, and I've said precisely how I'd pay for it, by introducing a wealth tax. I've said that we should be cutting pension relief for the wealthiest people in this country. I've said that we should be increasing corporation tax. I've said that we should reverse the inheritance tax. I've said explicitly how we should raise an extra £20 billion in new taxes on the wealthiest people and the corporations in this country, and I've said precisely where I would spend that. Now, Jeremy, if we'd put in place that programme, if you'd been articulating